everyone, this is Rudrani Bhadre. Along with my fellow mates Yushmita Siddharth, Mahima Singh Kawar and Sophia, today we are here to give you a presentation on land reforms in India. So first let's start with the definition of a land. In the majority, land is regarded as a crucial component of existence and is treasured. Men use land in many different ways such as primary food source, livelihood, a place to gather wood and an opportunity to work. Next, we'll see the definition of what is actually a land reforms. So, land reforms involving the changes of rules, regulations and an ownership of a land. Land reforms can also be consist as an government initiatives or government-backed property redistribution, generally for agricultural land. Land reforms also include regulations of ownership, operation, leasing and sales, inheritance of lands. Now we will take a look on different phases of land reforms in India. First is pre-independence and second is post-independence. In pre-independence, under the British Raj, the farmer does not have ownership for the land they cultivated. Instead, the land ownership was with zamindars and zagindars. There is a difference between zamindars and zamindars. Zamindars, a landowner leases his lands to tenant farmers. Zagindars are the holders of land assignments in lieu of assigned duties towards the emperor, such as police, judiciary, etc. The administration faced a number of significant challenges when India became independent. Few people controlled much of lands, and there were many middlemen who had no vested interest in cultivation. One of is that land leasing was a typical practice there. Tenant exploitation was prevalent practically everywhere, and the rental agreement was expropriative in characters. Land records were extremely in bad shape, leading to the mass litigation. One of the problems for agriculture was land fragmentation into very small parts for commercial farmers, giving rise to insufficient soils, capitals, labours in forms of boundary lands and boundary disputes. So now let's move to post-independence. Post-independence. A committee under chairmanship J.C. Kumar Akpan was appointed to look on the problems on land reforms. So basically, there were four basic components. First was abolition of intermediaries. Second was tenancy reform. Third was fixing ceiling on land holdings. And fourth was concentrations of land holdings. So, first component, abolishment of intermediaries, which basically means that abolishment of zamindar system. The first important component was abolishment of zamindars, where all the intermediaries were removed who stood between the cultivators and the state. The reform was relatively the most effective than the other reforms for the most of the area, as it took away the superior rights from zamindar and weakening their economic and political powers. There are various advantages of the abolition of intermediaries. First, the abolition of intermediaries or zamindar made almost 2 crores tenant the owner of the land they cultivated. The abolition of zamindar has led to the ends of parasite classes. More lands has been bought to government's possession for the distribution to landless farmers. A considerable area of cultivated wastelands and private forests belonging to the intermediaries has been wasted in the states. The legal abolition brought the cultivator in direct touch with the government. Next component is tenancy reform. After passing the Zamindari Abolition Act, the next major problem was tenancy regulation. The rent paid by the tenant during the pre-independence period was extremely high, between 35% to 75% of gross produce throughout the India. Tenancy reform introduced regulate rents, provide security to tenures and confirm ownership to tenants. The reform attempted either to outlet the tenancy altogether or to regulate the rent to give some security to the tenants. Ceilings on land holdings. The third major category of land reform laws were the Land Ceiling Acts. In simpler terms, the ceiling on land holdings referred to legally stipulating the maximum size beyond which no individual, farmers or farm household could hold any land. The imposition of such ceilings were to deter the concentration of a land in the hands of a few. With the help of these reforms, the state was supposed to identify and take the possession of surplus lands held by each household and redistribute it to the landless families and households in other specific categories like STs and SCs. In the most of the state, this act proved to be toothless. There were many loopholes and other strategies through which most landowners were able to escape from having their surplus land taken over by the state. Basically, this was an issue for the land ceiling reform. So, the last component, land consolidation. Consolidation of land holdings. Consolidation. Consolidation itself gives you the meaning. The meaning is reorganization, redistribution of fragmented land into a block. The growing population and less work opportunity in non-agriculture sector increase the pressures on land, leading to increased trend of fragmentation of the land holdings. This fragmentation of a land made the irrigation system task and personal supervision of the land plots very difficult. Landholding Consolidation Act. If a farmer has a few plots of a land in a village, those lands were consolidated into bigger piece of a land, which was done by either purchasing or exchanging the land. So advantages of land consolidation was that it prevents the endless substitution and fragmentation of a land holdings. It serves the time, labor of a farmer spent in irrigating and cultivating lands at different places. The reforms also brought down the cost of cultivation and reduced the litigation among farmers as well. Now we'll take a look on objectives of land reforms. To ensure that there is distributive just in order to create an egalitarian society by eliminating all sorts of exploitations. To transfer the income which was concentrated in the hands of few to many so that there is demand for consumers' good would be created. To help in creating a system of peace and proprietorship with the motto of land of Triller. To help in enhancing the agricultural productivity by improving the conditions of farmers and tenants. Is need for land reforms. First, need to remove rural poverty. Second, to increase productivity of agriculture. Third, to see that everyone has a right on a piece of land. Fourth, protection of tribal by not allowing outsiders to take their lands. Impact of land reforms. First, agriculture productivity. Second, social equity. So, the impact of land reforms have two results, that is positive and negative. So, first, positive, equity. Now the majority of land in India is enjoyed by minorities of landlords. Second, owner cultivation is more efficient than shared cropping. Now negative result. Resulting fragmentations of land and pockets of inefficiency for larger scale cultivation. The fragmentation of land normally won't help. Second, evidence suggests that land reforms has a negative impact on poverty. Now, let's take a look on problems in implementations of land reforms. First, weaknesses with the zamindari abolition. Weaknesses with the zamindari abolition such as zamindars refuse to hand over the land records in their possession, forcing the government to go through a lengthy process for reconstruction of the record. Second, weaknesses of tenancy reforms. Weakness with tenancy reforms such as most of the tenancies were oral as informal as were not recorded. Also, no tenancy rights were not given to the sharecroppers. Third point, digitalization of land records failed. Fourth, failure of the cooperative farming. Weaknesses in land ceiling legislation. In most of the states, the ceilings were imposed on individuals and not on family holdings, enabling landowners to divide up their holdings in the names of relatives or make benami transfers merely to avoid the ceilings. Last point, weaknesses of consolidations of land holdings. The program failed to achieve its desired objective because the farmers refused to exchange their lands for the new one. Now, success of land reforms. First, the most successful of all reforms were the abolition of intermediaries like zamindars. Second, collapse of the feudal structure. Third, greed of the big landowners were kept in check. Fourth, it leads to an increase in the landless labor as former tenants were driven out. Fifth, rich peasants preferred to avoid wage-related disputes with the new labourers and thus preferred more mechanisms. Sixth, tenancy reforms were most successful in Kerala and West Bengal. Seventh, cooperatives and community development programs were started. Now, the government initiatives. There were certain schemes which was established by government. First, Swamitra scheme. Second, the Bhudan movement. Third, Gram movement. Fourth, the Chhattisgarh Land Revenue Code 1959. Fifth, right to the fair compensation and transparency in land acquisition, rehabilitation and resettlement act 2013. Sixth, Digital India Land Records Modernization Program. So now we come to the end that land reform initiatives has been implemented slowly but to a large extent. The goal of social fairness has been accomplished in the rural aggregate economy, which is dominated by lands and agriculture. Land reforms plays a significant role to end rural poverty. Fresh and creative land reform strategies should be implemented with vigor. So that's all from our side. Thank you.